In search of William Campbell. Shortly after the beginning of the 21st century, I had finished my paternal Wixon line back to the late 1600s and felt it was time to turn my attention to my maternal ancestry, and so began a search for my great-great-grandfather, the original Campbell immigrant from Aberdeenshire, Scotland. This search was to prove more problematic than my paternal line, particularly when it came to validating my research and achieving acceptance of my narrative after publishing my findings to the internet. So I started by interviewing my mother, whose maiden name was Campbell, and phoning identified Campbell relatives and asking about our family tree. One package of information mailed to me was a collection of photocopied pages representing the work of a dedicated group who pursued the same line of research back in the 1960s, leading up to the Canadian Centennial Year in 1967. As my research progressed, I received essentially the same package, although not always complete, from Cohill, Bancroft, Coburg, Toronto, Calgary, and even from the state of Washington in the USA. Clearly, this package had been widely distributed, even to Scotland according to some sources. I named this package of information the Campbell-Isaac Genealogy Project in honor of the cooperating families from the 1960s. The Campbell-Isaac Genealogy Project contained a page for each family reaching back into the 1700s. Not all information was correct, particularly as pertained to my family line, but it was an invaluable roadmap showing where I wanted to go. This is one page from the package showing the family of Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason originating in the Aberdeenshire area of Scotland. Of the Campbell children named here, the arrows illustrate those that came to Canada. William, his sisters Isabel and Helen, who were married to Isaac husbands, Adam Corbett, who married an Isaac woman, and George, who followed a decade later with his wife and first child. Other documents in the project suggest that these individuals and several members of the Isaac family traveled as a group. Family folklore suggests that the elder Isaacs rented a ship and the group traveled together. Another possibility is that the Canada Company may have brought these individuals and possibly a number of other Scottish Highland family members on the same ship to relocate in Canada. There is a suggestion in the Campbell-Isaac Genealogy Project that the Campbell-Isaac group landed first in Norfolk County, Ontario. And although the Campbell-Isaac Genealogy Project contained incorrect information on William Campbell's first marriage, it appears the location of the group's first attempt at settlement was correct. Research located a marriage between a William Campbell and Sarah Ann Havens in 1845. Although no exact date was provided for this marriage, it was possible to localize the marriage date as sometime probably in June or early July 1845. Later research would confirm that the William Campbell who married Sarah Ann Havens was indeed my great-great-grandfather. I am in debt to Irene and the Norfolk County Historical Society for locating that reference in the marriage registers for the St. John's Anglican Church in Woodhouse Parish, Norfolk County. Although William Campbell and Sarah Ann Havens are probably married sometime in June 1845, they appear to immediately move to Northumberland County. William Campbell and Sarah Ann Haven are recorded in the United Church Archives as affiliated with a brand new Congregational Church in Cold Springs, Hamilton Township in Northumberland County. During the church year of 1845-46, William Campbell is listed as the church secretary and a deacon. The congregational minister of this church was Reverend William Hayden. William Campbell and Sarah Ann Havens appear to have interacted with Reverend Hayden and his wife on a personal level, as well as through church-related activities. By the time the first census is completed for Canada West in 1851-52, the Campbell family has expanded to number 4, with the addition of William Hayden Campbell, born in 1848, and Sylvester Campbell, born in 1849. It is worth noting here that William and Sarah have named their first 2 sons William for his father and Sylvester for his grandfather, in keeping with traditional Scottish naming patterns. This clip from the 1851-52 Census of Canada West confirms the household members' names, that William Campbell is identified as a farmer, that William Campbell was born in Scotland, and that William and Sarah identify themselves as Congregationalists, since they are members of the new Congregational Church started by Reverend William Hayden. William Campbell is working a farm for David Sidey, a former tavern owner from the Rice Lake area, who has sold his tavern business and purchased or been granted several tracts of land in Northumberland County. 3 years later, in 1853, the life that William and Sarah have created starts to unravel. A third son, named John, is born, but only lives for 2 months, dying on March 17, 1853. Compounding this tragedy, Sarah Ann herself dies the following year, on May 3, 1854. No cause of death in either case has been discovered. William Campbell is left with a farm to manage and 2 young sons under the age of 6 to care for. Following a prolonged search, I finally located the tombstone for Sarah Ann and John Campbell in the Cold Springs Pioneers Memorial Cemetery. This photo was taken on my second trip to the cemetery and tells its own tale. The red arrow points to a crack where the tombstone was broken over the years. On my first visit, the bottom 5 lines were not visible. The top part of the stone had broken off and been reset in the earth, obscuring a couple of lines, and the part of the tombstone below the crack was completely missing, probably buried in the earth and covered by grass for a number of years. Between my first and second visit, there was restoration work done in the cemetery, and fortunately, this tombstone was one that was reattached and remounted on a cement base during that work. Since I was always on the lookout for evidence corroborating William's early life with Sarah Ann Havens, as I am the only researcher who has discovered this aspect of William's life, this slide describing the marriage of Sylvester Campbell and Jessie Abigail Sykes is included. When Sylvester Campbell, William's second son, marries in 1893, his mother and father are fully named in the entry in the marriage register. This notation ties together the extension of the family line from Sylvester to his parents. Likewise, when Sylvester Campbell dies in 1924, his son, Bruce Campbell, states for the death registration that Sylvester's father was William Campbell, born in Scotland, and that Sylvester's mother was Sarah Ann Havens, born in Ontario. The Cold Springs Pioneers Memorial Cemetery, established in 1835, is located beside the main road through the hamlet of Cold Springs in Hamilton Township. The cemetery contains the tombstone for Sarah Ann and John Campbell, Reverend William Hayden, his wife and son, David Sidey and his wife Ann Suter, and a large number of other pioneer family members. A large stone cairn near the road is located on the spot where the original Congregational Church stood. Researching Sarah Ann Havens was important because the Campbell-Isaac genealogy project completely missed her and her relation to William Campbell. This was definitely one of many great moments in my search for William Campbell. Having explored the life of William Campbell while he was married to Sarah Ann Havens, it was time to turn my attention to refining the details of William Campbell's early life in Scotland. Utilizing the Family Search Family Tree website, it was not difficult to locate the baptism on March 26, 1819, of William Campbell, son of Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason, in Drumoak, Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Some 22 years later, the Scottish census of 1841 for Tillieve, Udney, Aberdeenshire, picks up the family of Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason. The 2 oldest children, Alexander and Jean, are not included in this census record, probably because they are married and living elsewhere at this time. Also included in the census record are 3 agricultural laborers and a domestic. Within 2 years, William, Adam, Isabel, and Helen will emigrate to Ontario, Canada. George will follow in 1853. By the end of 1844, both Sylvester Campbell Sr. and his daughter Margaret will be dead. The 1851-52 census of Canada West identifies William and Sarah's family is composed of 4 members. 2 years later, a third son, John, dies after living only 2 months. In the following year, 1854, Sarah Ann Havens dies herself. Sarah Ann and John are buried in the Cold Springs Pioneers Memorial Cemetery, near the farm where William and Sarah managed to farm for David Sidey. Within 2 years, William Campbell marries Isabella Jane Sidey, a daughter of David Sidey and Ann Suter, who lived just down the road from the Congregational Church. It would seem in this case that William Campbell not only married the girl next door, but at the same time married the boss's daughter. Although, given the Campbell and Sidey involvement with William Hayden's Congregational Church, it is almost certain that the marriage between William Campbell and Isabella Jane Sidey took place at the Congregational Church, there is no existing record, since all church records were lost during fires that destroyed the church twice in the latter decades of the 1800s. The 1871 Census of Canada shows William Campbell and Isabella Jane Sidey now living in Percy Township. William has bought a farm and is living with his wife and several of his children, including Sylvester, Sarah Ann, David, George, Mary, Alexander, and Isabella. The 1871 Census of Canada also shows that George Campbell, William's younger brother, is living on an adjoining farm together with his wife, Sarah Grubb, and their children, Mary Ann, Jane, Isabella, George, Sylvester, William, and Adam. Shortly after the 1871 Census of Canada, William Campbell sells his farm in Percy Township to his two oldest sons, William and Sylvester. William Campbell then relocates his family to the combined township of Burleigh, Anstruther, and Chandos in Peterborough County. The 1881 census record shows that William Hayden Campbell, the first son of William and Sarah Ann Havens, and his wife, Catherine Jane Beggs, are living in Wellington Ward in the city of Ottawa, together with their two sons. In 1891, William and Isabella are still living in Chandos Township in Peterborough County, together with two adult children, George and Mary. William Hayden Campbell has left his wife, Catherine Jane Beggs, and their two sons and moved to Montana Territory in the United States, where he will start a new life, creating a whole new epic search for this branch of the Campbell family. William Campbell dies at the age of 78 on March 8, 1897, still living on the family farm in Chandos Township. The physician making out his death registration, John Harding, states his cause of death as old age. William Campbell was buried in the Clydesdale United Church Cemetery on the Rose Island Road west of Coe Hill. This cemetery is still active in 2020. The extended Campbell family has maintained close contact with the management and maintenance of the Clydesdale Cemetery. Over the years, many members of my extended Campbell family are buried in this cemetery, including William Campbell, Isabella Jane Sidey, Sylvester Campbell, Jessie Abigail Sykes, David Sidey Campbell, Martha McPherson, and many more. To this point, I had followed William Campbell from his baptism in 1819 to his death in 1897, from Aberdeenshire, Scotland, to Ontario, Canada. I felt I had constructed an accurate narrative supported by facts and original documents. However, I had not counted on the propensity of the Internet, namely Ancestry, to spread misinformation. When I checked on Ancestry for a William Campbell who was baptized in 1819 by Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason, I was dumbfounded to discover that my William Campbell had been appropriated by as many as 6 family trees, none of which had William Campbell ever leaving Scotland. These trees essentially stated that William Campbell, son of Sylvester and Helen Campbell, had lived out his life in Scotland and then died in 1888 or, in 1 or 2 cases, in 1891. So I set out on perhaps the most difficult part of this project, to prove that William Campbell had indeed left Aberdeenshire, Scotland, emigrated to Ontario, Canada, and lived out the majority of his adult life in Canada. The first source I searched was Scotland's People, a pay-per-view site which specializes in Scottish records and family history. There was very little difficulty finding William Campbell, baptized by Sylvester and Helen Campbell in Aberdeen. Confirming William's date of baptism gave me a starting point with his early life in Scotland. I decided to approach the situation by attempting to discredit or eliminate other individual candidates with the same name, William Campbell, until only my William Campbell was left. By far the most common year stated in the various websites under scrutiny for the death of William Campbell was 1888. I searched the statutory death registers for all of Scotland in 1888, looking for individuals named William Campbell. Some 33 individuals named William Campbell presented as dying in 1888. Individual number 5 died in 1888, was a farmer in Durras, Kincardineshire, and was married to Elizabeth Reed. However, I felt that this individual could be eliminated on the basis of being born 3 years after my William Campbell was already baptized. Individual number 8 was born in the correct year, but lived out his life a long distance from my William Campbell's birth location. I really felt that none of the individuals named William Campbell, who died in 1888, could realistically be considered to be the William Campbell I had tracked from Norfolk County through Northumberland County to Peterborough County in Ontario. A second search of the statutory death registers for only Aberdeenshire in the years 1887 to 1895 for individuals with the name William Campbell produced no individuals whose date of birth correlated with the baptism of my William Campbell in 1819. I had already discovered that 3 Campbell brothers from the family of Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason, William, Adam Corbett, and George, had come to Canada. I started to think of ways to show similarities and a family connection between these 3 brothers and one brother, Sylvester, who stayed in Scotland and spent his life on the family farm. I analyzed naming conventions and found that each of the 4 brothers often used several names in common for their sons, such as William, Sylvester, Alexander, George, and Adam. Although interesting, perhaps even compelling, I felt this evidence was circumstantial. By 2010, the science of genetic genealogy was really just getting started. I decided to conduct an experiment to determine if this new science might produce evidence of the relationship between my William Campbell and his parents in Scotland. Since Ancestry DNA and 23andMe were in some turmoil, I chose to use Family Tree DNA to analyze my results. The most powerful male DNA test available at that time was the Y111 DNA test. Since William Campbell, Adam Corbett Campbell, and George Campbell had all been dead for over 100 years, it was necessary to find a male descendant in each family line to test. A few dozen cold calls to Campbell families in Ontario produced 3 willing participants, 1 for each of the male lines for William, Adam, and George. When the tests were completed and the analysis finished in 2014, the results were clear. A search of the entire database produced only 3 individuals matching each other on the Y111 DNA test. 2 of my test subjects had 110 of the 111 markers in common. The third subject had 109 in common with the other 2. This represented a very close familial relationship between the 3 subject lines. I submitted my information to the worldwide Campbell database and was informed that the only Campbell individuals in the database that belonged to the Y-DNA haplogroup I-M253 were my 3 subjects. So not only were my 3 Campbell lines showing a closely related familial relationship, but they formed a unique haplogroup within the worldwide Campbell database. I also tested my colleagues using an autosomal DNA test and submitted our raw data to the GEDmatch site, where DNA could be compared to various samples on file. I was hoping to compare our samples in a way that produced an estimate of the MRCA, the most recent common ancestor. Comparing my 3 samples in pairs against each other, the estimate for the number of generations until a common ancestor could be found was 3.7 or 3.8, essentially 4 generations. This finding correlated perfectly with the number of generations to move back in time to Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason, confirming that Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason were indeed the most recent common ancestral pair for all 3 lineages. Although my immediate family is somewhat more closely related to the descendant of William Campbell, we still show a close relationship to the other 2 lineages in my study on an autosomal comparison. I felt in 2014 that my research had achieved both of my goals as regards my Campbell lineage. I have followed the twists and turns in the life of William Campbell, and through various DNA analyses had established a strong argument based on scientific evidence that my William Campbell was indeed the son of Sylvester Campbell and Helen Mason, who was baptized in 1819. My great moment happened when I realized that my narrative was now sufficiently based in scientific fact to stand the test of time and meet any challenge from the Internet. For any family historian who wishes to publish their research to the Internet and wants to supplement their work on Family Search, Ancestry, or MyHeritage, Ontario Ancestors offers a platform where one can build a family history webpage using a WordPress page builder and the newest web design tools to create a lasting record of their family history research. Contact the TSIC of OGS for details if interested. If web design is not in your toolkit, but you still wish to produce a lasting record beyond Family Search, Ancestry, or MyHeritage, the Ontario Genealogical Society will host your GEDCOM, as this slide suggests. There is no cost to this service, and the information in your GEDCOM remains private and under your complete control. Again, contact the TSIC of OGS for details if interested. Thomas McKenty would be proud of us all for assuring that our family history research is secure after we're gone.